Welcome back, bookworms and film fanatics, to another episode of Shelf Indulgence, your monthly dive into all things literary and beyond. I'm Violet.
And I'm Katie. Whether you're curled up with a physical page turner, listening to an audiobook, or settling in for movie night, we're here to chat about the stories we love.
And speaking of movie nights, today's episode is a classic debate in the literary world, book to movie adaptations.
The eternal question. Is the book always better? We've all been there, anticipating the cinematic version of our favorite novel, only to either be thrilled, disappointed, or completely bewildered.
Exactly, from faithful recreations to wildly different interpretations, adaptations spark some of the most passionate discussions among fans.
So grab your popcorn, maybe your tissues, and definitely your most beloved book, because today we're tearing into the pages and frames of Hollywood's biggest literary transformations. Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Let's go. And this is that one we can always just go on and talk about because we either hate things or we love them or we're mixed and in between. We're not sure. Sometimes we'll love the book. Sometimes we'll love the movie more than the book. That also happens, which is crazy. But
yes, everybody's going to be different on this topic. But so for you, what's your general philosophy in on your book to movie adaptations? Are you a purist, or do you appreciate a director's interpretation above the book?
The book itself. I want to say, for me, I definitely consider myself a purist. If I've read the book first, I feel like it has to be done exactly the way I'm expecting the book to, have been written.
Yes.
And this goes again back to our own imagination. When I'm reading a book, I'm creating my characters, I'm creating the scene. I'm picturing them my own way, my own version. So when you see the movie, it's not your version. It's a completely different picture. The, characters are different, and you're like, no, that's not how I pictured them. There's no way that would have been. That's not what it said. And I know this is one of those things, especially character driven, where they're like, no, that doesn't look like the character at all. We all said, the character is this, and why did they make them look this? Or either they're younger and they made them look older, or vice versa.
Or they changed it, hair color, eye color. That was very, in your eyes, you had this vision of this person, and that is not what they look like at all.
Yeah, exactly. And it makes it even worse, where you're just like, no, which is where, yes, the purist part comes in. Because then I'm just like, oh my gosh, no, they've ruined it. They've already messed up the characters. And yes, I'm a super movie buff as well. I love watching movies. But yeah, I will watch the movie. I will complete it. But I feel like at the end of it, I have some sort of a semi-disappointment to what I was expecting them to have created. Like, nobody asked me who they were supposed to look like. Why didn't they ask us, right? Like, no, that's not how it works.
I'm definitely a purist too. I want it to go like the book because I enjoyed the book so much. And so I've made myself, I need to see the movie first before I read the book, which is not always possible, obviously. But for me, it happened organically, where as a kid, all the old classic movies, I saw all of those first because it was a higher reading level for your classic books. So I wasn't reading the book, so I got to see the movie. So I had that in my head growing up and I just kind of supplanted it in while I was reading the book. So I enjoyed both, but now I find myself, I have to either make a decision not to watch the movie at all and read the book, or watch the movie first and then go read the book, because it just ruins it for me completely.
Yeah, and I get that. Now, and absolutely no, I'm like, okay, this is right. And I like your idea. I absolutely think that maybe next time I will watch the movie first and then maybe read the book. Maybe I'll feel a little different about how the characters are played out, because then maybe my imagination will sync with what their characters were built, and so then I can just picture them in the storyline, which is what the problem is because you pictured someone and they're not your characters how you build them. And so, but if you did it that way, the way you do it, the other way, then maybe, I'm not saying it'll work out that way, but maybe it's a try. Maybe I'll try it.
Because they want their own vision in their head. of the characters. And so there are some people that absolutely, when I tell them that, they just hate that
They're like,
idea.
yeah, they're like, no, 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 we're not
no.
doing that.
It's like,
But it's again another version of you, like, okay, like if you want to, and it's again the same thing. Like, there's people who are movie fanatics, and they
right.
want like them to have like, oh, this is exactly what they need to do, and yeah, this is great, and then they don't like the book, and you're like, this is what they based it off of. What do you
That's
mean
right.
you don't like? They're like, the book was boring, or it was, they made it much more come up, because I've also heard both of those things as well, where you're just like, yes, again, and this is why it becomes such a big debate, because
Right.
either you're gonna love it, you're gonna hate it, or you're just,
But there's always strong emotions on both sides. That's
yeah,
the crazy thing with this topic, is there really is strong emotions on it.
absolutely,
People have
especially the
opinions.
movie or the book that you're talking about, and they're like, no, 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 or they're gonna go to classics, like you said, movies that were back,
Yes.
the when they
Even
did them.
the 40s and 50s. Go ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. So that was like, if you go back, those people that read, they're like going to tell you, yes, this was great or whatever. But if
Yes.
you do it and you're looking at it, you're going to think completely different. Like, oh my gosh, why did they do that? That's not how it was. But again, it's those questions that we're going to keep diving into as we're just starting this wonderful debate.
Well, what makes a good book adaptation in your mind? Is it fidelity or something else, which we've kind of already covered a little bit, keeping true to the book or not? But in your opinion, what makes a good film to book adaptation?
I think it really has to do with the director and the author itself. I do think that they need to be same page oriented. Like, they need to be visualizing and have the same vision of what they're expecting the book emotionally to create or invoke in you as you are watching it. So if it's a love story, then they want it to be where you're going to start seeing a little bit more of the characters coming out that way, and you're going to see the romance bloom. And then, okay, and it may not be that it's exactly what it is, and this is where the director interpretation comes into. And I know, and I get it. This is why they have that leeway of, well, just the author just wants you to remember, like, this is what I want them to focus on, this part, and so then they have a little bit more creativity to do other things, which is where we come in. We're like, no, 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 that was not part of the thing. And even though we're missing the whole, like, if you actually looked at it, like, well, they did talk about the romance, it's all about the romance part, so why did we not? Or, if there was the bad guy, whatever it was, it's like, this is what you're supposed to focus on, but we don't, because we've already read the book, so we're just focused on the whole, like, I'm already starting right here. I got a checklist in the movie theater, like, nope, that was wrong. No, that was.
I agree.
But yeah.
It's like, I'm with you too. It's like, I think the director and the author need to be communicating fully. And sometimes it's really good when the composer can get in on it too, because they drive that emotion, I think, throughout out the movie. And my best example, I think, is the movie Dune, the new one that came out in 2021. So there is an older version from the 70s, I think, that had the famous singer Sting in it. But this is the new one from 2021, and the director specifically made a point of talking to the author's son. So the author of Dune is Frank Herbert, and his son took on after him to write some of the novels, and then the composer and that is Hans Zimmerman. And I feel like between those three, they kept true to the story, and they really made you feel the emotions of that. I've told people this, where the composer Hans Zimmer's, he even added in the whirling of the sand over the dunes, and you feel fully immersed into this movie, and you're feeling the emotions the characters are feeling, and it stays very, very true to the book itself, I feel.
That's good. So, that's one of the ones I haven't watched. I haven't read or watched the movie, but the hype. I know that it is out there for both. I actually haven't heard a lot of people talking bad about either or. It's because you do hear when people are we are very opinionated people. So we will hear when we are not, we don't like something, but it's been very minimal. I think it must be because it hasn't made such a big wave of people not liking the film. All I've heard is that it's been fantastic. So
I know. The only criticism that I've heard in it is in the second movie, they felt that Chani, who is the female character in the book, she was hurt beyond repair, whereas in the book itself, her and Paul, who is the main character, communicated and were on this exact same page. And in the movie, that actually was very controversial, where Chani believes that she's been lied to and she runs off into the desert. And that is not true in the book at all.
Oh.
She is actually, they are fully on the same page. She may not like some of his decisions, but they are fully on the same page. But I don't feel like it hurt. It actually added, for me, it actually added, which is odd. Usually that will hurt. It'll make me not like the movie. But
right,
this,
because they've changed
he did a good job. Yeah.
Yeah, and here comes, and and that's where it comes, and we're like, all right, okay, I mean, that wasn't exactly what was in the book, but it
Right.
worked.
Yes.
It's fine. If it's working still with the storyline, we don't feel so betrayed.
Yes, and that is it. It's feeling betrayed. That's exactly.
As we're
Yes.
Yes, it really is, because we've connected with our characters, and to feel that, in the movie, it is really, and so then you feel that, which is why you end up I hate it. I hate that movie, because you're just like, no, that wasn't what was supposed to happen, because we've connected with them already, especially when we've read the book already. So then, yeah, you feel disappointed and or heartbroken or whatever they've made this happen with whatever character it was. But yeah, definitely those movies. But let me ask you.
Okay.
What is the first movie or adaptation that you thought when we were talking about the movies? What was it that your first thought of? What movie came to mind that you thought was something that was good or bad, or what was one of you? I know you just talked about Dune, but was that your very first thought, or what other book did you have?
Actually, my first thought was some of the most popular ones, like the Twilight series and the Hunger Games. So, like with the Twilight series, when that very first came out, I was an adult. So I have to say, I did read the books first on this one, and then I watched the movies. So when I saw that very first movie, I honestly laughed out loud. I thought it was so, it was geared towards junior high, which the books are geared towards that age group, and they kind of get older as the books progress. And I feel like in that very first movie, they didn't have as big a budget for it, and so and I think you've pointed out before too that they had a different director
Yes.
in the first movie compared to the others, and I feel like as the hype grew, their budget grew, and the movies got better and better. But that very first movie, it definitely fell flat for me, but it is one of the first things I think of for some reason with a book to film adaptation, is some of these teen young adult books, and like Hunger Games.
Yeah, and I know you read a lot of young adult or junior fiction. I know I do those too, because I love them. If you guys don't read them, because we're adults and you should still pick up the book, because I call them like our fun, easy reads, because they're so small that you can get through them during a lunch hour, and they're actually really good. They're written really well, and just because it says young adult or it says junior fiction doesn't mean it is specific. It just means that it's an easier read,
and it's geared towards that age group, but yet you can still get something out of it as an adult.
Yeah, absolutely.
A good example, real quick, would be like in it is the Twilight series New Moon, where in the movie they did such a good job with the adapting it, because there's like 3 chapters in there where it's just a blank page, and then it's the month. And in the movie, how they handled that was they showed her in a still, and then the seasons were changing around her, and she's just staring out the window. I mean, she's completely heartbroken. And I think as an adult, we can probably remember back to that first time when we were heartbroken, or even if you're in a relationship, you can think about that when, or even somebody passing. It's just the world stops, and it's like everybody is walking past you and everything's a blur. And they do such a good job in the book and the movie with that part, and that's the second one, New Moon.
Yes.
So again, I don't want to say terrible things about the first movie, but they get better as they go.
Yes, absolutely. Like, and I think that was one of the bigger things that we've all said. If you talk to anyone, they're always going to say the first one was definitely what we like to call a super slow burn. And so it didn't capture you right away, which also, if you just gave up on it and didn't watch the rest of the films, then I suggest you watch the rest of the films because they got like way better. There was much more, they were getting a little bit more truer to the book itself, and they started doing way better with that interpretation. And that is also one of the books, my very first books that I also started reading as an adult, because I think I was like, we eventually stop in life reading at some point for enjoyment, and we are all just about reading. Again, if we're in school or we're in college, there's that time where reading just becomes a chore, more of a thing you have to do, whether it's for school because you're learning, you're studying, that we're not picking up the books anymore to enjoy them. And so I've put, we put them aside, and we don't pick them up that often for that purpose. But Twilight was my very first book that I picked up as in my early 20s when it first came out, and I was super excited. And I had heard the radio station was having this big old thing at one of the bookstores, and that they were inviting people to come over at midnight, which was also, it was a midnight because it was a midnight release is what they were doing.
They did it with Harry Potter too.
Yeah, and they're like, and then you can come, and if you already knew the characters, apparently you could even dress up as the characters. So this was like, I was like, whoa, wait a minute, what's going on with all this? And again, I was listening to the radio at work, and I went and I bought the book. I did not go at midnight because this was the thing that was happening already. And so like, eventually I'll go get the book, and I'm going to see what this, hype is all about, I guess. And I did go get the book, and I fell in love with the book, and I read all the books and devoured them as fast as they were also popping them out. And it took forever because it's just like a movie. You're like, oh my gosh, I have to wait for part 2. How long does it take? And I'm like, listen, this author needs to get on it and start writing really fast because I need to know what's going on. What happened next? What happens next? And then we did the whole movie thing. We did the same thing, and I made my brother into a fan. I've made my nieces into fans, and so we all went and camped out when people were camping out still.
Yes.
To do the releases of the movies, and we wanted to be the first ones in line because we wanted to be, also because they were always doing some sort of a giveaway at whatever it was. And so they were doing giveaways, whether it was like, maybe, I don't know, a book that was signed, or they had like t-shirts, and it was just huge, right? Whatever the movie was. And so the first, like, let's say, I don't know, first 100 people get whatever something. So of course you want to be part of the first 100 people. So you know what we're doing? We're there all night. We take the day off of work, and we're waiting, and we're camping out, and we have our hot cocoa, and we have, all of us are there. And my nieces would all get like, luckily their parents were always like, okay, you're with your aunt. She's probably not the most ideal adult we want to send you guys with, but sure, we'll let you guys go. And then we would, have like our friends come over, and we'd all meet up. And it was really cool as well experience because the people are all there with the same intentions, and you guys are all, and we're all just talking. It's like a giant book club, right? Or like movie goers, and you're just talking to all these people you've never met before that are all in love with the same thing you're in love with, right? Which is whatever characters or whatever it is that's happening. And again, here we are, Team Jacob or Team Edward. Yes. I mean, I was very torn. I know, I was like, it's very torn. And then eventually I was like, Team Jacob. And then eventually I learned to, fall in love with Edward, and it's fine, I guess. It turned out to be fine. It's okay. But absolutely, so you go through those whole emotional connections with people in the movies itself. So then you're expecting, and of course when you're watching the movies and you're expecting so much. And then when it doesn't turn out the way you want to, then we're just like, oh my gosh, what happened? But again, by the second, third, fourth movies, I think they did way better. Again, there was a part I'm not necessarily super fond of. Yes, and there is some things that I will pull out and be like, no, that they shouldn't have done that, or they should have added something back in there instead of taking it out. But
so talking about that, is there any book to movie adaptations that have absolutely fallen flat for you? Because I mean, I know for a few of mine, I mean, we could so for a few of mine is like some of the classics like Frankenstein or Dracula, where they focus more on the romance of the story rather than the monster, like in Frankenstein, where Frankenstein is pretty much almost half of that book is him he's so lonely, and he's seeking out a mate throughout that, which I guess is a romance thing, but he doesn't understand why he's been created, and he wants to have another counterpart, a love, which in further movies they do bring like the Bride of Frankenstein into play and stuff. But they're usually they just focus on the creator, I think, or the romance between whatever the romance
creation,
is. Yeah, the creation and then the romance is usually what they focus on. The same with Dracula. There's usually romance there where like, is Dracula, what's the next person he's gonna bite? Are they gonna fall in love? Is it, will he kill her? Will he love her?
Yeah, that's like the suspenseful part. Really is like, will they connect or not connect? And so you're like, really, is this really what this is about? And they've had so many. And I'm gonna go with your idea here as well. I think those, if you go back to classics, there's gonna be a whole bunch of them that I feel like they just totally have not necessarily done them justice as what the book is actually about. And so they've completely changed like you said, they've changed the story. And there's so many movie adaptations. There's so many versions of each one of these movies that everyone has their own, whatever direction, whatever idea they thought it was. And so they've created something. And I'm not saying the movies are, I think the movies are good. I'm not, they're not, that they're terrible, but if I'm going to compare it to the book, they're completely different worlds.
Right.
Because absolutely, they're not focusing on, like Frankenstein. They don't ever really talk about the creator, which is like let's they're not talking a lot about Frankenstein him, the Frankenstein, the person, not the creation, right? And so I'm like, what made him they talk a little bit more about that in the book, like why he's doing whatever he's doing, what came across, versus in the movies we're just seeing somebody being created. We're talking about this creature, again, and depending on what movie you've seen, what they're focused on. And I've seen a lot of different versions. And I like the movies for themselves, just the movies, but not no way connection to the book. Same as Dracula, right? We were talking about. I'm just like, I think you had said it wasn't the same, any of the movies.
Yeah. I mean, because Dracula is mainly forced on you're fighting this deep evil. And I've mentioned the past, I read it right before going to Bible college. And for me, it was a heavy spiritual warfare book about this group of people coming together and fighting this evil. I mean, they gather and they pray and they fight. If you're not religious, you would love this book because you are fighting against a common evil. But it's more about those people and their relationship and fighting against this person coming over. And in the movies, it's mainly about romance, and there's barely any romance really in the book itself. There is one man and woman that love each other, but again, he's fighting this massive evil that's trying to take her over and kill her and turn her into a vampire. And the movies just don't do justice to that, I feel like.
Yes, absolutely, to any of these other classic movies as well. So I do suggest that if you guys have seen any of these movies, but again, they're great, they're fantastic on their own, but read the books. There's nothing like reading an old classic book, and so that you could see for yourself really where the author was going with these stories. I think one of those was also like iRobot, which is Isaac. Do you remember that? I think we did it for the science book club, and we had read. It's not called iRobot. It is called something. I can't think of the name of the book itself. My gosh,
but it goes into the laws.
Yes, and so you're doing that, and in the movie,
actually, I think the book was iRobot, but it's like 9 little short stories.
There you go.
By Isaac Asimov.
Yes,
and the movie's nothing. Like the movie kind of took maybe one of the short stories in there, possibly, but really not. I mean, they might have, I don't know, but it was nothing. Like they just pretty much planted him in the world of iRobot and went with their own story.
Yeah, it's their whole own storyline. They just took the main piece of the robot himself and who how this the background, the planet, that kind of little things, but
and the rules.
The laws that they were not allowed to do, whatever they were not allowed to do. And again, yes, it comes to what they were created for. But the movie was its own thing, completely its own thing. And I did see the movie before we did it at book club. So I read the book way after I'd even seen the movie. And I've seen the movie a few times already.
Me too. Actually.
And then I was like, My gosh, it's like
I know. I was
got
like, well,
nothing.
where's the story where the movie was? I kept waiting for that part,
Yeah.
honestly, and it never came. I mean, even one of the short stories is of them on another planet, working with these robots, and I was like, man, that wasn't in the movie
Yeah.
whatsoever.
Yeah, that's it.
And
Yeah.
like the one of the first ones was the little girl, or it could have been a little boy, with their nanny robot. That was in there too, which I think actually would have been really good in the movie. But
Yes. Yes.
there's
Yeah.
just a whole lot of things which again, I enjoy the movie. I really
Yes.
do like iRobot, that movie, but it's really not the book.
Yeah, absolutely not the book.
Mm-mm.
There's like no, yeah, again,
There's
just
no
like
real connection.
there's no real connection besides like I feel like
The
title
world.
and maybe again the laws and some of the little things that they took out of it,
Mm-hmm.
but their creation was completely different again. So also if you've seen the movie, love the movie, absolutely love
Yes.
it. I think it's great. I don't think it goes with the book at all. So if you did want to try to read the book, please pick it up, try it, and read it, and so you could see exactly what
Yes.
they were trying to talk about. But yeah, absolutely, they're completely different things. But
Totally.
let's see. Oh yes, book to movie adaptations where films enhanced your appreciation for the book, or even surpassed it in some way. What can you think of one of
Oh.
these?
Well, I would say honestly, Dune was one because I was
Yes.
never going to read
Oh yes.
Dune. I had never planned on reading that because I actually knew of the old movie. I had never seen it, but I'd seen little bits and pieces of it, and honestly, my parents both hated it, so that's why they said they liked the book, and my mom would always talk about the big worms coming up out of the sand and different things and make fun of it. And so I never was planning to read that book. Obviously, I run the science fiction book club, and so I have tried to read a lot of science fiction that I normally wouldn't read. I have to say, after watching the first movie, the very first thing I did was download the book Dune from Hoopla. Honestly, that's the very first thing I did. I think I did it while walking out of the theater. And so for me, since it was such a cinematic scope movie, and again that music was with me, I felt like I could hear the music all the way through while I was reading the book, and it made such a big difference for me.
It does help you connect. Yeah, yes. See, and there's those things where like if it was a good movie, it connects the book with that movie, and then you're just like, okay, yes, but I can merge.
I didn't read it first, and I know those that read it first, they may not. I mean, again, we haven't heard terrible things.
Yeah, I really haven't. But, again, and if you guys have any thoughts, please feel free to let us know about these thoughts as well.
Yeah.
For me, Green Mile.
Oh yes, and see, so I have not read all of that book, and I've only seen bits and pieces of the movie. But what I have seen, I've cried.
Yeah, I'm like, it's definitely one of those books that touches all different emotions that you're watching. It has a little bit of a magical feel to it. It has like what, because the whole scenario is obviously somebody who is what they call a Green Mile, is somebody who's in prison, right? Who has committed a crime that they're going to eventually get put to death. And so again, I think the movie, they did such a good job with the movie. I just have no complaints about that movie whatsoever. It was so great.
Did you read the book?
In the book, no, I read the C, and I did see. Maybe that's what it was. No, really you're bringing something out to my mind. No, I watched the movie before I read the book, and so again, and I think it's because sometimes it really you're onto something
it really
here.
Does help
because then the characters that I've seen now were the characters that I'm seeing as you're reading the book, you know, and Mr. John Coffey.
Oh yeah.
You know,
I mean, nobody
sounds like coffee, but spelled differently. You know. So that movie, again, super fat. They did a great job. They did a great job with the movie itself.
Most of Stephen King's movies that come out, they flop. A lot of them I've heard. Okay, so I've heard, and maybe you don't agree on, but he is never happy with them. He is never happy with the movies. But I think he did like the way that Green Mile came out.
I don't think I've heard, but I have heard complaints of other.
But yeah, so he gets. I've heard this, and you can't quote me on it, but that he really doesn't like giving over the rights because they just don't do justice with the movies, and unfortunately, it seems like it, like Gunslinger, and I want to. Oh, I can't remember some of the other ones, but
Pet Cemetery.
Yeah, Pet Cemetery. Those.
Yeah.
They never do justice to the book because he put so much emotion into his book.
Into the writing.
Yes.
And the descriptive words and
Yes.
how it's actually bringing it to life for you and just describing
Yes.
a scene
Mm-hmm.
that in the
You
movie,
can completely
they just
imagine.
show you the scene and it just misses that mark of like
Yes.
you feeling like you're emerging into this world.
Yes.
Because that's really what a lot of his writing is. If you guys are Stephen King fans, you know his
Yes.
writing is just really emergent. Like you're gonna get, if you're reading any of his books, you're
Oh,
gonna
yes.
be in that book.
Yes,
And there's no, yeah.
Like with his a few of his, they get a bit too scary for me to actually watch the movies.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge horror movie watcher, but I can read the book, and I've heard of that where people, some people struggle reading the book because their images that come up in their head are too severe, but yet they can watch a film and see it. So I've heard the opposite too.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I can edit the images that are coming up in my head when I'm reading the book, but I can't edit what I'm seeing on the screen.
Yes.
So I do prefer to read his books rather than watch his movies, except for The Green Mile. That I have to say, the bits and pieces I've seen of that, I need to see the whole movie.
Yes, it's like a really, really good movie. And again,
and Tom Hanks is in that one.
Yes.
I mean,
like,
usually he doesn't flop.
Yeah, I was like, it's a Tom Hanks film, of course. And yeah, it's just one of those stories that it just stays with you. And again, it's one of those that have stayed with me for so long that I will still continue to talk about it. And I will tell you guys to read the book as well, besides just the movie. But it's great. Like, it's just one of those that I'm like, okay, they did a really good job here. Unlike some of the other, I'm like,
they can keep adapting books to film. We'll let them.
Yeah,
we'll give them
this
permission.
one time only they did all right.
I mean, we could go on and on about this subject,
absolutely.
but and we want to hear from you. We are on Instagram and Facebook now. You just have to look for us. It's Pioneer Memorial Library, and we want to hear from you. Some of these questions that we asked each other, if you will let us know what you're thinking.
Yes, and we have a tons more questions on here that we will post. Again, we can ask you guys, you ask us, whatever it is.
Skipped quite a bit.
Yeah, I was like, we'll go on forever, and we don't need you guys to listen to us forever, all day, all the time either. But anyways, that's all we have for our deep dive into book to movie adaptations. And like I said, we'll talk about this all day if you let us. So until next time, happy reading and happy watching.
Yes.
Yeah. So bye for now. We'll see you guys later.
Bye-bye.